Molt bon dia, benvinguts, seguim aquí a Eufònic Pro. Good morning and welcome. This is one of the international sessions of Eufònic Pro, which is, now you know it by now, Eufònic Festival's professional conference. And we are now live from Sant Carles de la Ràpita, South Catalonia. And we are going to connect with different curators and programmers from different places of the world in a panel that we have called Open Table of Transdisciplinary Practice. And that's an open name in which what we want to achieve is that people who work in the environment of the digital arts and transdisciplinary arts and cultures, that they can take something that they think it's important for the ecosystem and the community, so that we are able to discuss a little bit and to get acquainted with different points of view. So I'm going to introduce, without further ado, our participants today. From St. Petersburg, Russia, we have Natalia Fuchs. She runs an international digital arts practice called ARTYPICAL, and she also curates Gamma Festival, a really exciting festival. Then we have McPartlin from Bristol. He runs a festival called Submerge. And last but not least, Monica Bello. She is the curator or the director of arts at CERN. You know, the place where they have the particle accelerator. She runs the artistic residencies. So she has all the time artists and scientists working together. So we are going to meet each of our participants. I'm not sure if they will receive it, but I would like to ask the audience to join hands together so they can hear it or feel it or maybe see it. Aplauso! This is for you. First of all, I would like to ask Monica. Monica, you are, have I said it properly? You are like the curator or the head of arts or something like that at CERN in Switzerland, in Bern? Wait a minute, I cannot hear you. Little glitch. That means that we are live.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
Go on.
So I'm the curator and the head of Arts at CERN. The Arts at CERN is the arts program of the laboratory, and in 2011 we began to do art residencies, but now we do art residencies as well as art commissions and exhibitions. So it's the arts program. It has become a bigger framework for art and science collaborations.
And how is it to mix scientists and artists to work? To me, they look similar, but for many, many people, it can look like a very strange marriage. How is it?
Well, it's very exciting and very challenging. It's something that is not, there is not a manual that I can follow. We need to create often our own methodologies and reset and calibrate them, depending on the experience and also the expectations of the artists and scientists. We work focusing on artistic proposals and the research, the exploration that a particular artist or a collective is interested on. And so day by day we feel that we reinvent the wheel around art and science, and this is what makes everything exciting and challenging at the same time.
Mm-hmm. When I ask you, what do you think that it's important to talk about and to explore and to discuss, that what was important for you, and you said, I want to talk about how do you work with data in art. So how do we work with data in art?
Okay, data, well, in art and science, data is everything at CERN. It's not, well, it wouldn't be fair to say it's everything, because there is a very important theoretical department, and they look at data as well. But CERN is the largest laboratory in the world. We have a huge community. We are more than 12,000 people. And everyone is subjected to the results and the analysis of data. The data is coming from the experiments. The biggest experiment and the core of experiment of the laboratory is the Large Hadron Collider. And what happens inside the Large Hadron Collider is that the scientists, amazingly, after so many decades of research, managed to recreate the beginning of the universe, or different stages of the universe. And they don't do it by visual culture or language, as we could like to see, but they do it through data that is really dark and is not really straightforward. It cannot be used without processing it and manipulating it. So I often get proposals from artists wanting to work with data from the Large Hadron Collider, so I thought it was a good theme, a good topic to discuss.
Actually, you have said that at CERN you collect lots and lots of data that artists can use, but there are several places that artists can go to and get data that's collected there, and it's open. So if you are an artist, there are certain places that you can go there and find this open data and use it as, I don't know, I would say as the engine of your work. How would you say that an artist works with data?
So if an artist comes and say, hey, I want to work with the data, and said, get ready to work with the scientist who will help you and support you with the translation of the data. These data are pixel points. They are points of time, space that are crossing through particle detectors. So everything is, once the data is, well, the signal goes through the detector, and this needs to be collected back and put back together, like a big topography. And this has to be done hundreds of times just to understand what is there. And this is done with thousands of hands, people that are spread all over the world. So you don't really, as an artist, you don't really need to go to the Large Hadron Collider, look at the machine and work with the data. It's more a matter of building up a collaboration with scientists who can help out to work from the moment zero of the data generation to what you want to do in this final artwork. I think a very good example is what the Semiconductor did 2 years ago with the art project Halo. Halo is a large installation that was inspired by the data from the Atlas detector. And they spent a year and a half working with scientists from Sussex University in Brighton to understand how they could manipulate and use and bring into slow down the data collisions and put them in tangible forms. Because what makes their project extraordinary is that they work with raw data, data that is non-biased, that is coming just as big data sets that are just not being used or for performing science. And this was a super exciting project. It was a learning project, a process that helped us to understand how artists could cross the boundaries between what is data visualization and what is data understanding data at the metadata level, and it brought many good experiences, but also new challenges, because to find a scientist who can engage and have the time to bring all this information and little pieces together with you through the artistic process is not easy. It takes a lot of hours to do that. But they are enthusiastic about artistic projects all the time, but this is a really crafts-based activity. And then putting this in a tangible form that can be experiential was a really interesting thing to do as well with the artist. I was meant to play a video, but I prefer you and our viewers to go to the web page of Semiconductor. You can Google it, Semiconductor Art and Data. They have a really good documentary about the making of this project, Halo, and they explain all the different, in a very detailed way, how this was created. And so Halo is a really good example, and I think it has created a precedent for the way artistic research and the complexity of scientific data sets can come together in a meaningful and significant way.
Take this tip from Monica and go discover the work of Semiconductor, because they basically are, I would say, the poster guys for art and science work. Like, they are really good at working with data, and they are really good at working with scientific concepts. So there, I think, a couple of artists that you really need to know if you haven't. And now one last question for Monica, that when you talk about data and you talk about the Large Hadron Collider and something that mimics the beginning of the universe, to me it looks or it sounds as abstract as the most abstract of types of art. Totally. I guess that for scientists it's not abstract at all, but to me it is.
Well, you are totally right, Antònia. I think I've been working in art and science from the last, well, I'm getting old, so I can say 20 years. So I need to be humble at this point of my life. And but by being at CERN, this is something I haven't done before, spending almost 6 years in a lab working with our colleagues, scientists who are highly creative. It's just an amazing environment and really challenging, really demanding environment. You really need to be, framing the right questions, but also trying again and failing and being. It's a really interesting experience as a curator, but as an artist, and the way artists collect information from science is often from the laboratories and from the scientists, but we are being affected as well by hugely, and it's a nice way to do it and to take information, to know about the world, by the scientific communication. So the language and that has been formed around art and science is based in scientific communication and the way ideas are spread in something that has been already translated into a nice and kind and straightforward way. But I think it's very important that we keep inventing ways to invite artists into the places and the processes where science happens raw, without this translation. Because it's a very powerful experience, and it will allow us to interpret and to make and translate experiences that are often very far from any citizen, any of us, any individual. And by doing this, we will diversify our culture in a way that we cannot even guess. We can only expect that the benefits will be huge. So I think this is my quick reflection about art and science and how we can progress from here to open up these spaces for artists and keep inventing scenarios where these exchanges can take place in a long-term way.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Monica. I'd like to say hello to Natalia. Hello, Natalia. How are you? I don't have audio from Natalia. See, check yourself if you.
How about now?
Now I can hear you clear and good. Hello, hello.
Yeah, hi. Good to see you all. Thank you
Good to
for
see you
invitation.
too. Thank you very much for participating. When I asked Natalia, what do you think it's important now for the digital arts community? And she said, I think education is important. And she runs a project on education at the moment. And she said that she was feeling like speaking about this corner and how important it is for this environment. So, Natalia, tell us about what you are doing.
I come also from art and science field, and I used to work as an institutional curator in the field of art and science for Polytechnic Museum in Moscow for several years. And in fact, I was imagining the program I was creating there more as some kind of a production hub in the field of digital art. But the way the community was growing, developing, and the way I was trying to meet the expectations of the community, at least locally here in Russia, it turned out to be the educational program. And after 3 years of running this program, we became like the best education program in the museum space in Russia. So it was a very important experience for me because there was something important happening for the digital art community in Russia, because so many artists here lacking knowledge and contacts with the international community. And what the museum did at that point in terms of education is opening up to many different communities worldwide, and bringing important people, visionary artists here to Russia to give the opportunity to the local scene, local community to meet them, exchange. And the whole program was built up as a workshop series on different genres of media art and art and science. And I think that I was lucky to actually interrupt my career as institutional curator into more individual curation. And you mentioned earlier the Gamma Festival that I curate and co-produce in St. Petersburg right now. And this experience became for me very important again in the field of education development, because the festival took this chance to run experimental lab on artificial intelligence and art here in St. Petersburg. And we were lucky to have a very nice team of young researchers from Russian Academy of Science that were connected to the international group of artists that came to St. Petersburg from very different countries. We had people of very different levels of artistic experience, but also coming from very different continents, from United States to Kenya to Japan and Eastern Europe. So it was a very nice mix of people. And it was in a way, you know, breaking the borders for me, because as an institutional curator before, I was thinking that this kind of doors can be opened, you know, especially in Russia, only with some strict formal procedures you have to follow to actually welcome people from different communities in the art field. But here it was all done absolutely independently, and the development of this lab was the whole series of international labs on artificial intelligence and art that was supported by such great research institutions such as MILA, Artificial Intelligence Research Institute in Montreal, and also right now I'm curating Futurological Congress art program of this Congress that is happening in Bolzano, and it's happening with the support of OIRAC Research Institute. So this became for me a very interesting case, how actually experimental initiatives in the field of education and they can be something what is rooting us as artists and curators in the research field, and in a very serious part of research that brings scientists also into a very different level of understanding what problems, what issues are interesting and relevant for the whole society, I would say, in regards with a specific technology. So this kind of projects, educational projects, for me, were not only about create the community of scientists and artists and mix them together, but in fact give at one point understanding of the history of technology and science to the artists, but then back bring the understanding of how culture develops and how art is developing, being very strongly connected to what is happening in the development of science and technology. So I think that we were actually maybe missing this point a little bit during 20th century. We were just, like slightly trying to guess what's happening, but this is really so much powerfully connected and interesting that we should continue to go this way. And right now I'm very happy that I have the opportunity to work in Moscow more with the kids and with education programs that are developed for schools and universities, because this interdisciplinary vision, I think, has to be explained to people in the very early age. So I think that this is something what will make the whole life very different. I don't know how my European colleagues, but I was educated in the situation when there was a very strong, definition. If you're a humanitarian mind or if you're like scientific and technological mind, and I was like fighting mostly all my life with going through this border, So I think that it's very nice that now the whole education system, at least what I see, what's happening in Russia, is coming more to the balanced situation when through the art we can bring science and the technology, and we can do it differently also. So through the science and technology, bring art to people. Maybe that's it. I wanted to share the video, but I think you can follow MUTEC mini documentary tag in the search system and just find the latest making of the MUTEC AI art lab that was developed together with Mila. It's a very exciting experience, and there you will see some important questions that artists are currently having towards artificial intelligence, and how different researchers reply to these questions.
So you have homework now from Natalia, just to search for this after movie, this documentary, so you can find out more. And I want to ask you, Natalia, I was wondering how different it is to work with education in two different contexts, as a museum or a cultural institution and festivals. How is it?
Well, I'd say that yeah, in the festival environment, you have very different competitors for the attention of the people, and I think, of course, you might experience this as well in your festival life, because I think when you develop educational projects for the festival, first what we have to do is to create, again, as a curator, a specific environment inside of the festival platforms for such initiatives. Because it's very specific audience that is involved, I would say, and following with all the attention the discourse and educational programs, because so many people in the festivals, they actually follow a bit different agenda, I would say, and with the focus on like entertainment, sometimes it's a bit difficult. But when you are developing such projects in the museum, then you come to a bit different problem that you have to solve. I'd say is the experimental nature of this, because at least in my case, I always had to, in a way, report with some specific artworks that had to be like produced. But when you do education and you do experimental art, it's very difficult to try to achieve this in this requirements, So at one point, I would say that the festival life is giving you much more freedom. But then this freedom can distract a little bit of the goals you're having. And in the museum, you have much more relaxed environment in terms of going straight to what you want to achieve. But at the same time, there is a different understanding of the result, and you have to be very, very strict with what you require from people attending. So
And
that's,
also, I
that's
think,
the main thing.
yeah, I think that also when we curate activities for a festival, we tend to pack as much as we can. Like, we cannot stop. If we had more time and more space and more hours, we would never end.
That's very much true. The last case of Muted AI Art Lab, for instance, is a very intense experience, because we had about 20 people coming from different countries. And I mean, we were working 24/7, like a week, just to try to do as much as possible. And it was reminding me the festival days, of course, yeah, like the typical festival environment. And that's very exciting, because you immediately recognize where you are, even if you are in a totally different space and there is no performance and party happening every night. But still, the whole the whole atmosphere around is kind of repeated. So yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
Thank you, Natalia. And now I would like to say hello to Mike Pony from Bristol. Hello, Mike. How are you?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, clear
Excellent.
and loud.
How are you?
We're good. We're good, Also, and now Natalia was saying that in festivals, like the attention of people, especially if you put up activities that are not concerts or installations, things like the one that we have right now, that it's very challenging to get people's attention. I have to say that today we have people's attention. Everybody is here with the ears open, the eyes open, they are, taking notes, so everything okay in this sense. So when I asked Mike, what do you feel that we need, or it needs to be discussed in this world of digital arts, transdisciplinary practice, whatever you might call it. I never know how to call things. He said, I want to talk about how queer community is represented or presented in this environment. And so, Mike, how are your thoughts about it?
My festival, Submerge, is based in Bristol. There have been 2 editions in Bristol, but I actually live in Manchester now, so I'm thinking about moving the festival to Manchester. And as part of that, I've been thinking about the kind of artists that I program, who also curate alongside me, and also like who the audience for the festival really are. And because Submerge Festival grew out of my work in the queer community in Bristol, making kind of large immersive art and club events with digital and audiovisual elements, I had a very instinctive audience for the first festival in 2016, because the audience were predominantly made up of queer people who came to my club night, which was called Horseplay. And so I guess as a young curator kind of testing the waters for the first time and doing my first festival, I didn't think too hard about how you develop an audience and who the audience are. And so Submerge Festival in 2016 and 2019 has platformed queer, trans and non-binary artists as part of that curation. And I felt like it was important to platform the work of those artists, particularly in digital and electronic festivals, which I guess Submerge wouldn't identify as a digital or electronic festival anymore, but we might have in the past. And my experience of traveling to other festivals like MUTEC and various others has been just a kind of just questioning the visibility of queer art and queer artists, and also how welcome queer audiences and trans audiences and non-binary people are made to feel. And MUTEC is a great example, because MUTEC has a kind of safe space policy where there are kind of party support people you can go to if you're having questions, but it's really just making me think about, when I curate the next edition of the festival, and it features queer, trans and non-binary artists, and is gender balanced and takes into account age and ability and race and all sorts of other factors that are important in diversity and inclusion, it's really made me think about who the audience are. It's not enough to just program those artists and not really think about how you support the audiences who come to that work. So I'm really thinking about how you have a safe space policy, how you reach those communities, and how you make those communities feel welcome and safe at your festival, so that they can experience work by those artists. And then also how you invite allies into that conversation. So, you know, it's not enough to just program the work and think that people will understand how to receive that work. I think there's also some reaching out to the communities who might be also represented in that work, to make sure that their needs are met within attending as an audience, making sure those artists are taken care of and that their needs are met. And then also just thinking about how we communicate with allies of the community, the kind of behaviours that are and are not acceptable in kind of queer spaces.
Mm-hmm. I guess that it's challenging, because you have to think about what you are doing as a whole. Like, you need to think about who participates, that the representation is wide enough, that there are men, that there are women, that there are people from all colors, nationalities, etc., etc. I think that's a big part of the work. So if you represent someone like on stage, I think that I guess myself, my personal opinion, I think that helps, you know, to embrace more audiences that can feel, okay, this is like me, so I'm allowed. I think it's the same, for instance, in television. I think that when on television, that it's still highly popular when you represent, I don't know, a certain social group, people of a certain, I would say, sex, profession, etc. It creates some kind of a mirror or identification process with the audience. But at the same time, I guess it's challenging to provide a space for the audience to feel safe, to feel comfortable, and that means working a lot with the infrastructure of the festival, I guess, the people who work in the festival, etc., etc.
Yeah, and I mean, that's really, I think what you're saying about representation on television is, I think when you see yourself represented in a lineup, there's a certain sense that you're welcome in that place. But then there's also work to do to make sure that those communities are welcome, I guess. ensuring that you have kind of like non-gendered toilets, or you have at least one facility that is non-gendered, and thinking about a kind of anti-racist policy, anti-sexual harassment policy, and that kind of safe space stuff is really important. And I think, I'm one of the things that I did when I went to a festival like Mutec, when I went to any show or any kind of big club, I would log into Grindr, which is a gay networking app, and I would find like who the nearest queer men were in that space and see like, are there any gay men here? Are there any people I could like become friends with and feel a bit more like a community within that community? So using a kind of gay sex networking app to actually find my people at a festival has been like, it's a strange thing to do, because actually I feel like it should be about connecting with everybody because we're all there for the same reason, but also there's a sort of safety and security in finding your community within a community.
I think that festivals are a space to find, I would say, like-minded souls. Like you go to meet the people that like the things that you like in terms of music and arts. So I think that what you are saying, like it's good that you are going to find people who are like you, like, or that you can feel more comfortable with, which is good. I don't know.
And it's funny because I feel like I'm the difficult one by bringing up queer comfort, but I feel like, everyone else is going, well, why is that important? But actually, like I have felt often at festivals, like the needs of the queer community, the trans community, and the non-binary community, and gender fluid people kind of aren't often thought about enough. And so that's something I'm really thinking about working on with my festival. Like, how do we make sure those communities know that they're welcome? Mm-hmm. How do we communicate the festival is for them and for allies? And is it interesting to kind of think about queering digital, or is it just a very niche concern?
Actually, I think that there are like lots of very interesting things that come out from the queer niche that you say, which is like really, really good. Also, I think that in the last years, I guess that we still have a lot of work to do, but I don't know, 10 years ago or 12 years ago, nobody talked about the presence or the representation of queer communities in festivals or in the digital arts or in not many scenes. And now at least the word is out. Like there is this discussion, there is like this, I don't know the word in English exactly how to say, that you have like this urge to say, we need to work around this, we need to do something. So I think that we're far from perfect, but at least we ask ourselves what we can do to make it better.
Yeah, and it's insane that representation is only really starting to be discussed when kind of often things like electronic music grew out of queer culture. So, we've always been there, and I think it's just about thinking about how queer people feel safe in festival spaces and art spaces.
And also, I would say that in creativity, like there are in the space of music, there has always been like a lot of creativity from the queer community, but I think that especially now there are like many artists doing incredibly interesting things. Actually, we have had before, like the real life panel before this one, we had a couple of artists from Barcelona who are working exactly in this space of hybridization, not just of gender, but online, offline, real life, virtual life, whatever, which I think that it's very interesting, especially younger generations of artists. I think that they are proposing really interesting things in this field. It makes me excited as the audience.
Yeah, and I think younger artists have a really different relationship with sexuality and with gender, and things are very I think the age of the queer club or the queer night might be coming to an end, because I think that ultimately the future is a kind of much more mixed intersectional thing. And I'm really pleased about that. I'm really pleased that younger artists are feeling freer and more able to express their gender and their sexuality and all of their other, traits.
Yes. And so one last question, because it sparked just my curiosity. When are you planning to move Submerge from Bristol to Manchester?
So I'm planning the next edition to take place in November 2021.
Okay.
we're a biennial festival, so we happen every 2 years, except that there's a pandemic, so that's kind of getting in the way a little. But really, I'm doing some work right now in thinking about who the communities are here and how I can start working with those communities before. I don't want to parachute a festival into a place. I want to grow a festival from a place. So really thinking about how to engage with queer communities in this city now in order to grow things together, and also how to extend the curatorial voice of the festival to people who aren't kind of cis white men like me. So I'm thinking about introducing, guest curatorships or co-curators who curate different parts of the festival who are of different backgrounds to myself.
That's really good. It's like a way to welcome diversity. Also, I would say that Eufònic works a little bit like this. It's created from the place. Like Vicent, the director, has made sure that he was creating the festival like this from scratch. And Eufònic will be 10 next year. So I think that we are doing something good here. So I would really love to see how it goes for Submerge.
Thanks.
So I'm going to check the time, because since it took us a while to set up, and I really need to release Mike, because he is going to participate in some matchmaking sessions that we are organizing with programmers, curators, and artists. He's going to have a couple of blind dates now, so it's time to close the panel. I would have liked that the thing allowed for more discussion, which was my first idea, but I think that it has been lovely and very interesting to talk with you. And I want to thank Mónica, who is in Barcelona now. Mónica, muchas gracias. Ay, que no te oigo. A ver.
Solo decía muchas gracias, me hubiera encantado estar ahí.
A ver.
Otra vez.
Otra vez. A ver si el año que viene las circunstancias lo permiten. Natalia, thank you very much. We wanted very much to have you at the festival. We tried to invite you last year, but at least we can see ourselves on screen. And I hope that we can welcome you in person soon. Thank you very much. Mike, thank you very much. I wish I can attend Submerge, either in Bristol or in Manchester or God knows where, but I really want to go. Thank you very much for participating.
Thanks so much for having me, and thanks for dealing with a young, difficult queer curator.
It's good. We are going to say thank you collectively, and we are going to clap your hands. I hope you can hear it. So, thank you. And I also want to say thank you to the online audience that might be connected right now to this panel. Thank you for your attention, and see you again soon. This is Eufònic Festival. There is more to go. Ya está, merci.